It's starting to get cold out, and I'm kind of running out of heat bulbs on the GoHerping shop, but if you want to check out the current remaining ones, you can go to the link in the description and save 10% when you use code COLD2017. A little boring, but you can save 10%. So lots of people ask whether they should be looking at snakes or lizards as pets. This is going to be a very general video. So in an effort to not say the word general or generally in front of every single sentence, just assume that everything I'm going to say is pretty general and depends quite a bit on the animals. So I'll stop trying to say generally, and we can compare whether you should be looking more at snakes, or lizards as your next pet reptile. Firstly, let's talk about something pretty important, that being some of the main differences between their enclosures. Lizards are, nope, don't say generally. I'm just going to keep saying generally. Lizards are generally going to need a lot more space than snakes. They're more active, they want more enrichment, and they don't just sit in a hole all day waiting for food. They often want to move around and maybe burrow or climb or explore or whatever, so you can expect to get a larger enclosure even if the animal is the same size. For example, a 12-inch bearded dragon is going to need way more space than a 12-inch ball python or something, just because of their preferences on what they usually want to do as a minimum size. Next up, something else in the enclosure, that being the lighting. Although I personally believe every single reptile should have a day and night light cycle so that they do know when to come out and when to go away. Oftentimes they don't need specific lighting, while many species of lizards do require certain types of lighting, for example UVB. Not always required, however, because you do have to replace the UVB every 6 to 12 months, this is something to take into consideration because there are some extra costs with that. Something else to think about, which will affect both your cost and your time, is feeding. Snakes have very low metabolisms compared to lizards, so they don't have to eat as often. Usually this will be once every 5 to 10 days depending on the size and species or age of the animal, while lizards, depending on which one you have, it might be every day, every other day, every 3 days, or a few times a week, but it's almost always more frequent than snakes. This means that you are definitely going to go through more food. This doesn't necessarily mean it'll be more expensive. For example, maybe it's the same price to buy a bunch of dubious for him as it would be to buy a bunch of mice for him, and it might last him the same amount of time. However, usually I would say it is more expensive and definitely more time consuming to feed lizards because it has to be done more often and they use up energy a bit more quickly. Speaking of feeding, they usually poop about as much as they eat. Let's not lose Goldie here. So that means you can expect to clean your snake's enclosures, poop out about as often as it eats. If it's every 7 days, maybe every 7 days. Some animals are less frequent or more frequent with snake species. And then if it's lizards, if you're feeding them daily, you might have to clean it daily. Making videos with animals is interesting. And although this might not make a huge difference, but if you are spot cleaning the enclosure, which means just like taking the bit of substrate that might be soiled or have poop in it, you usually have to replace that little bit of substrate, meaning that that might be another additional cost on the lizards, because if you clean it out daily and lose a little substrate every day, you're going to end up buying more than cleaning a snake's substrate bits out weekly and replacing it every week or so. Of course, not all the substrate has to be replaced, just the little bits, but it can add up. And then I would say the other big thing to think about is really the bonding and personality of the animals. If I'm being honest, snakes probably don't really care about you. Even if they do enjoy wrapping around you, they're usually just doing it for the comfort and warmth, which that's great. Sounds good to me. However, it kind of appears like if you look at different videos and different keepers, lizards might be more attached to their owners than snakes. It does sound like, based on this video, that lizards are overall more difficult, and I guess technically they probably would be, generally speaking. That's not like scientifically proven by me, but that's how I feel about it. Either way though, I think lizards are going to need more bonding time and more attention overall, just to ensure that they're comfortable with you, whether it's that you want to take them out or clean their enclosure or feed them without them freaking out. They're going to need more time and probably more consistent time with them. Meanwhile, snakes, although that's definitely a great thing and they'll be better off when you do give them more time, it's definitely not required, and they'll be okay if they're really not messed with very much at all. So overall, they would be a lot less time consuming when it comes to the care, the feeding, and the handling. The lizards would probably be higher on the scale with how much time they need and how much money they need, because they need the more space, usually the more food, the more time, and different things like that. Also, lizards have ears, so they can listen to everything you say about them and judge you intensely. Meanwhile, snakes just sit there because they're deaf and oblivious to the world. This was kind of my quick comparison, looking at the general things with snakes versus lizards and which one you should be looking at. If you really forced me to pick between snakes and lizards, I'd probably rather keep snakes overall, but of course I really love having both. It's a very close neck and neck, and I think they kind of beat each other from time to time. Hopefully this video can kind of help point you in the right direction to which general species of animals you should be looking at for your next pet reptile. Let me know any other differences that come to mind for you in the comments of this video. Again, you can use the coupon code, what was it? COLD2017 on the site if you want, and you can check out all the other content on the channel right now. So that'll be it for this video. I'm Alex, and thanks for watching. Also, it only took me like half a year. His name is now Smokey.